My name is Emily Alcorn, and my partner is Grant Alder. Resolve: the U.S. military should not permit women to serve as combat troops. When it comes to the military, there are many factors to consider when selecting troops, and because of these factors, women are not capable of meeting the standards that men can. The first factor to take into account is combat limitations. Female soldiers are, on average, shorter and smaller than men, with 45 to 50% less than upper body strength and 25 to 30% less aerobic capacity, which is essential for endurance. Women are injured more often than men during combat training exercises, especially when required to carry heavy equipment. Mixing men and women could create costly distractions. If both men and women are serving side by side, fighting together, this could distract the men and women. They could fall in love with each other as well. This could cause the problem where the man or the woman care more about protecting each other than their fellow soldiers. This also creates added stress for men by allowing females in their squads because one big focus is keeping that female or females safe. It is just common nature for men to protect women. Women are generally considered to be very gentle, caring, and compassionate. So because of these personality traits, they would have problems handling the atmosphere of fear and hostility that is definitely generated on the battlefield. Also, logistics would also need to change if women were added to infantry units. Women require separate bathrooms and other various womanly needs.
The second factor is sexual assault and harassment. Every 2 years, the military does a survey which found that 14,900 service members experienced some kind of sexual assault in 2016, from groping to rape. Deployed women exposed to combat-like experiences reported a 20% incidence rate of sexual assault and a sexual assault during the 3 years follow-up period. If women get captured in combat, they are at a greater risk than men of being raped and tortured. Incorporating women into infantry ranks will also increase the number of cases in infantry units, subsequently taking time away from training, readiness, and unit morale. Earlier this fall, the SWAN, Service Women's Action Network, surveyed more than 1,300 service women about the impact their military service had on their mental health. The survey identified military sexual trauma as the number one factor negatively affecting their mental wellness. Following the survey, SWAN brought together service women and women veterans from all branches and eras in a summit in D.C. that further survey's result. The service women who attended included a 71-year-old Navy vet who shared with us that after multiple rapes and assault, the only way she could finish out her enlistment in the 60s was by numbing herself with alcohol on a daily basis until her contact was over. Once women leave the service, they do not leave the military sexual trauma behind. In one survey, just over 60% of women indicated that military service negatively affected their mental health, most often tied to MST, and recent data bears out the fact women veterans have higher rates of depression than non-veteran women and a shocking 250% higher suicide rate than civilian women. Even as women veterans are trying to access veteran health services, they report being asked by their fellow veterans in VA facilities. The third factor is pregnancy. The pregnancy rate is at least 10% among service women. Another 5% have had their babies and brought them back to their posts. A mother's main role is to love and nurture their child. There is no possible do that from the battlefield. Women in service who get pregnant during their tour duty would also have to leave their fellow soldiers behind, which would create a friction between their fellow soldiers for one needing to go home over the other. Going back into the service after giving birth would affect their performance. This would cause severe depression and constant feelings of homesick. When young men and women in the age group of 18 to 25 are required to live in close approximation in co-ed barracks, often doing unpleasant tasks and suffering from loneliness away from home, the inevitably happens. Military officers are issuing maternity uniforms, opening nurseries on Army posts, and pretending that women can do anything that men can, but the reality is that they are just a distraction. 16 out of 100 Navy women are resigned to shore duty due to pregnancy. Women unexpected on stations on Navy ships up to 50% more frequently than men for land duty. A single transfer can cost the Navy up to $30,000 a year. In January 2015, 3,335 women were pregnant aboard military vessels, representing about 14% of the 23,735 women then serving such duty. Only the Air Force had a reduction in unattended pregnancies in the 3-year period, with the rate dropping from 7.4% to 6.7%. The Air Force and Coast Guard had the lowest rate overall, 6.7%. Rates for the Army stayed consistent at slightly under 12%. Researchers reported that rates of unintended pregnancy increased by 33% among female soldiers. Women in the Marine Corps had the highest rate of 15 to 16.9%. According to the Navy, 13% of sailors reported a pregnancy in the previous year. Nearly 2/3 of pregnancies among enlisted women and 74% of them among junior sailors were unintended as